Hello and welcome to another episode of Endurance Minded. It's the podcast that looks at the psychological and emotional components of endurance sports and how they impact performance. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, founder and coach at TEC. And on this episode, very happy to welcome back to the show, Coach Sid Vaughn. Sid is a coach for Thomas Endurance Coaching, as well as a runner for the Roots Running Project based in Boulder, Colorado. I have him back on the show to talk about what he's been up to for the last several months. Sid's been through a lot, everything from dealing with the effects of COVID that so many athletes and individuals around the world have had to navigate and deal with and understand how that impacts their training and their return to training, as well as an injury that flared up that he's been dealing with for most of his life, how that caused him, or rather forced him to take 4 months off. And Sid and I talk about what he learned through this process, what it looked and felt like to realize that his expectations were not going to be in alignment with how he was actually going to have to move through his injury, through his recovery, and ultimately his return to running. So we kick things off by talking about how he worked through his injury, and then go on to talk about things such as athletic maturity and how, as his evolution as an athlete has progressed, how that athletic maturity has informed the way he thinks about things like rest and recovery, and how understanding that that's a critical part of the process, and that fitness is not made and lost in a day or a week or maybe even a month, and that it's important to take a pause and rest and recover and put things in perspective. Sid talks about how his prolonged time off from running really allowed him to be present in other areas. So how he shifted his focus, took that energy that he used to pour into running and put that into other areas of his life, and how that ultimately was a really fulfilling process and something that he really was thankful for in the end, to be able to put time and energy into things like friendships, into other relationships that he valued, other areas of his life, other activities that he typically hadn't made space or had time to engage in because he had been pouring that energy into running. Sid talks about the power of just maintaining movement in general. So if it's not the thing that you are most passionate about, or the thing that you typically engage in the most, be it running or cycling or swimming or whatever activity you would use to describe what you're most passionate about, there's still power in just continuing to move. So while Sid wasn't able to run, go for a walk. He got in the pool. He engaged in different areas where he was still able to stay mentally and physically connected to movement. And that was something that was really, really important for Sid and held a lot of value as he was moving through his injury recovery process. And then we also talk about the role of a coach, specifically Sid's coach, but also how he works with his athletes as a coach through injury, and the role of that coach outside of race preparation. So we typically think about, or often athletes think about needing a coach, or think about the power of the coach-athlete relationship when we are at our most fit, when we are at our healthiest, and when we are building towards very specific outcome-oriented goals. But for Sid, that coach-athlete relationship is just as strong, if not stronger and more valuable, when you're going through challenging time periods, challenging situations. And so Sid reflects on how he stayed in very, very close contact and maintained a very strong relationship with his coach, continued to follow a structured training regimen, even though there wasn't running involved. That was something that was important for him. And then he weighs in on how he uses that experience to stay connected to his athletes and help those individuals that he works with navigate challenging time periods, be it injury, setback, whatever that might be. So Sid's perspective is incredible. I have so much respect for Sid as an athlete and a coach, and his ability to stay positive, stay connected to what he loves through a really, really challenging time period, many, many months and consistent and constant setbacks and realignment of his expectations and how he thought the year was going to play out. It's a really hard thing to do. And so